The Broncos made a huge gamble this offseason, and it is paying off. And it is our white hope, our white unicorner, Riley Moss. So we're going to talk about how Moss has paid off big time for Sean and George Paton so far this year. I do want to quickly say, though, thank you to everyone who subscribed to the channel over the last few days. We crossed 26,000 subscribers. We're marching to 30,000. So if you have not joined the channel yet, please consider doing so. It's completely free. But let's talk about Riley Moss, because Pat Surtain always does an awesome interview with the guys from DNVR. And in his interview today, he said, Riley's for real, like this ain't no gimmick. And I think I speak for everyone when I say coming into this season, we didn't really know what to expect out of Riley Moss. He missed all of last preseason, his rookie year, with a sports hernia injury. We hardly saw him at all his rookie season on the field playing meaningful defensive snaps. He played 23 snaps his entire rookie season. So we had very little to go off of when trying to figure out what we had and what was supposed to be and is the starting CB2, opposite of PS2. I mean, in the preseason, there were some good moments and good flashes, but let's not kid ourselves. I don't think anyone came out of the preseason going, man, Riley Moss has for sure been a top 2 player so far on the Broncos defense. And right now he is playing like a top 2 player on the Broncos defense. 4 pass breakups, an interception, a forced fumble, had his first career pick on Sunday against the Raiders. But when you look a little bit deeper here, look at the coverage stats. He's been targeted 36 times so far. That tells me a couple of things. Either A, opposing offenses think he stinks and they want to target him, pick on him, and abuse him. Or what's really happening, B, opposing offenses have to target Riley Moss because they can't target the other corner because that's a worse path to go down. That is Patrick Surtain II. So it's a little bit of pick your poison here, right? Moss gets tested every week because he's the only option the opposing offense has to throw to. They know they can't throw to number 2's direction. If you do, you got a 100-yard pick 6 in store for you and another interception on top of that. So when you look at Riley Moss's coverage stats, yeah, it doesn't look like a top 10 corner so far in the NFL. And sure, it's only been 5 weeks, but I think he has looked like a top 15 corner, top 15, top 20 corner. But he gets picked on a decent amount because the offense has no other choice but to throw his direction. Now, let's do a little bit of a film breakdown here on his first career pick against the Raiders. So right off the jump, I love this from Moss. He knows that this is probably going to be a pass that goes his direction just based on pre-snap alignment and how Riley Moss and his man are the only 2 outside options. So what does Moss do? He immediately throws a jab at his receiver. That's going to break up the timing on this route. Gardner Minshew is throwing to a spot at a specific time, and this is going to come back and pay off big time for Riley Moss. So after getting that jab, sometimes you run the risk of maybe falling a little bit behind. Not in Moss's case. He is running step for step with his receiver. But he's also doing a really nice job of trailing just a little bit so that he doesn't overcommit or over-pursue to one route, right? If this is supposed to be a curl, he doesn't get caught selling out for a go route. Now, let's watch how this ball is mid-flight here, and Moss starts to get his head back. He starts to locate the football. He notices the receiver gets big, wide eyes. The arms start to come up. It's the biggest tell of the football is on the way. And Moss, in this last stage here, has turned from a DB to a receiver. If you did not know that Riley Moss was a cornerback, you would think he is the wide receiver on this play, and the Raiders DB got caught out of position. So Moss goes from going step for step with his man to running the receiver's route for him. And a big part of that was right from the jump, he throws a jab at the receiver. It knocks off the timing. Gardner Minshew throws to a specific spot at a specific time, but the receiver's a little bit behind because Moss disrupted the route, put him off course, and then ran his route for him. It's one of the best interceptions you're going to see from a Broncos DB this season. So let's show the guys some love for having an outstanding start to the season. Spam 21 down below in the comment section below. Riley Moss has exceeded my expectations for sure. I thought, hey, this will essentially kind of be a rookie season for him. He didn't get to play at all last preseason or training camp. He was more or less like a practice squad guy a year ago, since we hardly saw him on Sunday. And practice is valuable, don't get me wrong, but you don't quite get the same experience as you do in game. So here he comes this year for a first full healthy season to open things up, and the guy's been lights out. Now, before we look at some other stuff you're going to want to see regarding Moss and a couple other little side bets the Broncos have made that have paid off, I do want to tell everyone watching about our great sponsor, Game Time. Game Time has this awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. So if you want to go check out the Broncos in town, you want to go to an Avs game, you want to go to a Nuggets game, visit Game Time because they are giving Broncos Country $20 off their first purchase when you download the Game Time app and use code CHATSPORTS. Terms apply, but I look at it as Game Time is going to pick up a little bit of maybe your parking or your first concession run. So if you're thinking about going to the game anyway, why not visit Game Time first? Because I'd rather have $20 personally than not have $20. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Now stick with me here because this next part of the flight is somewhat uncharted. This could pay off quite nicely for the Broncos. Of course, it's great to have good players at important positions like cornerback. But just stick with me here as we look ahead a little bit to what's probably going to be some of the bigger needs for the Broncos in 2025. And I know we're looking way down the line. A lot can change, but as things stand right now, I'm thinking 2025 offseason, what could have been a big need was corner is no longer a need for this team because Riley Moss has shown he can play outside corner, lockdown every single week for you. So now you can kind of cross that off your list, right? Now you can devote your attention to tight end, which is definitely a big need. Wide receiver, I think, is going to be a big need, especially if they decide to move on from Courtland Sutton. Again, long ways to go, but he'll only have 1 year left on his contract, so we'll have to wait and see how things play out a little bit. DJ Jones is going to be a free agent, so you're going to want to replace him. Do you let Garrett Bowles walk, or do you bring him back? If you let him go, you might need a new left tackle. Edge rusher, Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, they are both free agents. Do you bring back one? Do you bring back both of them? There are going to be some holes on this roster that have to be filled. But Riley Moss playing excellent football just rules out corner, which corner is a top 3, top 4 position right now in football in terms of value. So having a big sigh of relief going, okay, we don't have to focus our attention on corner. Well, that frees up your first-round pick to be maybe a left tackle to replace Garrett Bowles. Maybe an edge rusher to replace Browning and or Cooper. Look at Denver's 2025 draft picks. They finally have a somewhat normal amount of draft picks. They're in round 1. They're in round 2. They're in round 3. They have not been able to say that since 2021. Yeah, it's been a long time. They're in round 4. They're not in round 5. Their 5th-round pick belongs to the Dolphins for the Bradley Chubb trade. They have 2 6th-round picks because of the Albert O trade, but their 7th-rounder went to the Eagles for the Albert O trade. So then you look at free agency, right? You can only plug so many holes in the draft. The Broncos are setting themselves up quite nicely for free agency next year. They have a little under $72 million available as things stand. That is top half in the NFL. They'll have most of the Russell Wilson dead cap hit behind them. This was the tough year of that, so they are doing a good job of weathering the storm when it comes to the cap space they had available this year. So way down the road, but a lot of potential here for corner to no longer be a need for the Broncos in the offseason, freeing up a first-round pick to, say, be an edge rusher. And then in free agency, you either can afford to bring back Garrett Bowles because you're not spending big on corner, or you're not spending big on edge rusher because you're not using a first or a lot of money on a corner. So there is a lot of long-term dominoes that are going to flip over and really help the Broncos out if Moss continues to play well, because it's tough to find good corners. It's a lot tougher to find two good corners. The Broncos have two great corners right now. Some side pots, by the way, they've been paying off nicely for Denver. Brandon Jones, he's much cheaper than Justin Simmons, and Justin Simmons is playing great football for the Falcons, but I'm not going to say value-wise Jones has been better, but it's just making the loss of Simmons a lot more manageable. John Franklin Myers looking like a great trade so far for Denver. I mean, the Jets thought they have Hassan Reddick, so they're like, we don't really need Franklin Myers, so we'll kind of give it to the Broncos for next to nothing. And now he's been great, and the Jets don't have Hassan Reddick. And then Luke Wattenberg, I don't think he's played like top 10 football for the center position, but you moved on from Cushenberry. You couldn't really afford to go external to bring in a new center because of all the dead money due to Russell Wilson's contract. So you had to keep it in-house. You had to go with Forsyth or Wattenberg, and so far it's been, manageable. Now, he did pick up an injury on Sunday. He did not practice today on Wednesday, so fingers crossed he will be okay for Sunday. If not, it will be Alex Forsyth. So the Oregon connection from center to quarterback to wide receiver if Troy Franklin can catch a football. Who is the jury still out on? The running backs. We've had some good running back play the last couple of weeks, but now we need to see it consistently, right? I don't want to make too big of a deal out of, 2-3 weeks of running the football well. Javonte Williams, he averages over 4 yards a carry, back-to-back games for the first time since a year ago right now. Let's start to see some consistency from the ground game. So I'm not quite ready to crown the ground game is back, but this was something that Denver really didn't do a whole lot on in the offseason outside of a day 3 draft pick to Audric Estime, who is, by the way, hopefully coming back this Sunday. But the jury's still out on the running backs for me, although it's trending in the right direction. And then I'm losing hope on the tight ends. I don't think you're going to get much production out of this unit. I think through 5 weeks, we have seen probably the worst tight end room in the NFL, and I don't have much reason to believe it's going to turn around. So this is unfortunately the cost of having only so many resources this offseason and so many needs to address. Something was going to go overboard. It was the tight end position, and we are seeing a little bit of you get what you pay for, which is you didn't invest much more than a 3rd-round pick in Greg Dulcich, and this is what's paying off right now. Before we sign off, I do want to show some love to the Blue and Orange Club for being such loyal supporters of the channel. Slap Yourself, I Don't Give a Buck, and John E. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. If you want to get added to the club and get shout-outs for the rest of the season, $100 Super Chat during our next watch party, and we'll add you to the club. All right, boys and girls, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed our content, give us a big thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.